Hi, friends. It is episode 145 of the Diet Diaries. If you are listening on the day this gets published, it is Monday, September 18th. I think today's going to be a shorter episode. And before I dive in, just a quick announcement, kind of just a reminder that Project Plate Plan is coming, the three Ps, PPP. Registration is going to be open next week, a week from tomorrow. So Tuesday, September 26th. Next week's episode on Monday, the 25th is actually going to be kind of all about this, what it is, why it's helpful, if it's for you, trying to kind of answer any questions that people have asked or that I think might come up. But just a reminder, this is coming, and this is going to be is a 10-day self-guided course. This is going to come via email, and everything is going to be in that email. This isn't where you have to log into a separate platform and sit and watch endless videos. This is very, very turnkey. I want you to be able to read these emails and immediately go off and take action. Otherwise, to me, self-guided courses are a waste. I've bought a million of them and never done them. You guys said you wanted one, and so I want it to be set up in a way where you're actually going to use it. We are all humans and we have good intentions and we buy things and they sit there. And it's not helpful for me if it sits there, and it's not helpful for you if it sits there. It's only helpful if you're actually able to do it. This is going to be around the 4 key skills you need to work on fat loss without dieting, without counting calories, without counting macros, without counting points, without doing one of these diet programs where it's pre-packaged food and bars and shakes 2 or 3 meals a day, right? This is about eating real food that you actually enjoy and learning how to figure out what portions you need and how to use efficient sources of protein to really help fill you up and get your body in a place where it can lose fat. So more info coming next week. Registration is going to open. It's $29. I priced this really affordably. I want this to be a no-brainer for you. If you've been looking for support, if you're ready to make a change, I want this to be a go-to for you. So let me know if you have questions in the meantime, and more coming soon on that. Okay, so today I want to talk about something that has come up with so many of my one-to-one coaching clients over the past couple of years. And it's not something that I have brought up. It's something that so many people have kind of realized on their own through this work together around behavior change around food. And that is the idea of your future self. I actually had a client last year get a bracelet engraved with this, and she wore it for a period of time as a reminder. That's how powerful this idea can be. We are so wired for instant gratification. I've done episodes around this. I talk about this a lot. Our brains are kind of naturally wired for that, but now we live in a culture and a society where that's everything, right? You can order food and have it delivered to your house, online shopping, Amazon, on-demand TV, instant information, right? I mean, how often are you sitting watching a show and you see someone you recognize, then you're on IMDb looking up who it is? We think of something or need something and we instantly can get that fulfilled because of the internet and social media and technology. And part of that is amazing and part of that is disastrous. It's both and, as always. And because of that, when it comes to food, as soon as we get an urge for something, we usually just react to it and we eat the thing, we do the thing. This is why so many of us struggle with emotional eating, mindless eating, overeating, because we get an urge for something and we don't have the skills to kind of slow down. We need that urge fulfilled immediately, because if we don't, it feels really uncomfortable. We have to kind of sit in that. So when you start to use this idea of your future self, that is a tool to kind of help you pause, to help you slow down, to kind of help you pull back out of the kind of urgency of that present moment and think about, hold on a second. This might feel good immediately in this moment, but what's going to happen in 5 minutes, in 5 hours, in 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years, right? And you don't always have to think about it that far out. You could think about 5 minutes from now, right? If you are sitting at a table with a group of friends, you're out to eat and someone orders fries for the table, right? And you take a portion, you put them on your plate, you finish them, you're like, oh, I want more. And they're sitting there in front of you. So you just start eating off the plate. You're eating more, you're eating more, you're eating more. And then suddenly you're like, oh my God, I'm super full. I feel disgusting. Why did I do that? Why do I always do this? So if you put that portion on your plate And then you get the urge to take more and you have a skill ready to go, a skill around your future self. And you can say, okay, hold on a second. How am I going to feel in 5 minutes? How's my future self in 5 minutes going to feel if I eat these fries? You're going to know you're going to feel pretty shitty because you've done it enough times before that you have the evidence. And pausing and thinking about yourself in the future can be super, super helpful. Is it a skill? Does it require practice? Yes, it does. Like, I'm not saying the first time you do this that it's going to be like, oh, boom, it works great. It's something you have to get used to doing and you have to practice doing. I also see this as a form of self-compassion when we stay kind of connected to ourselves, right? We know our past selves because we've lived it. Sometimes we have a hard time connecting to our future selves because we're thinking more about what we need in the moment, not what we need in the future. But the more that we can think about our future selves, I think the more it starts to cultivate that feeling of self-compassion. It's like, how do I want to be taking care of myself in the future? How do I want to feel in the future? Again, the future's 5 minutes from now. The future's 30 seconds from now, right? And how do I want to be showing up for myself? And is what I'm doing right now in this moment going to serve that future self or not? Um, and so I mentioned this like a minute or two ago in the past. Pausing is your greatest tool for behavior change. I sent a couple of emails about this last week. And I'm talking a little bit about it today in the context of future self because that kind of is a skill. Because it is a way to kind of pause, right? You get an urge for something. If you've had a shitty day at work and it's 10 o'clock at night and your kids are in bed and you're like, oh my God, I just need some cookies or ice cream or chips, whatever your kind of food of choice is. You get that urge, you're walking into the kitchen, and as you're pulling open the freezer or the pantry, you pause and say, okay, hold on a second. Before I do this, how am I going to feel in 5 minutes? Am I going to feel better? Am I going to feel worse? Am I going to feel the same? Just pause and check in with yourself and be honest. If you think you'll feel better, great, go for it. If you think you'll feel worse or the same, maybe not so much. And if you decide that you're going to feel worse or the same, and you decide not to eat that thing, you're going to be like, well, now what? I still feel shitty. I still had a shitty day at work. How do I make that feel better? There are a lot of other tools for that, not to necessarily, quote, fix it or make it feel better, but to give you a way to cope and to move through that in a way that's actually productive versus eating, which can sometimes be productive, right? I will never say that all emotional eating is bad, but if it's on a regular basis that you're doing it and it's your only go-to coping mechanism, yes, then it's problematic. But just pausing and thinking, how is my future self going to feel? What would my future self want? How can I take care of my future self, right? Those are kind of 3 different articulations of this. Maybe one of them resonates more than the other. And keep that, that becomes like a skill. Maybe you keep that in the notes section of your phone. Maybe you have that on a sticky somewhere in your house so you can be reminded of it. Because yeah, sometimes it can be hard to remember to do these things at first. Even if you only remember 1 out of every 5 times, that's great. That's progress. This isn't like you go from never doing it to doing it every single time. Start doing it 1 out of every 5 times, then it's every 2 out of every 5 times, then it's every other day. We slowly progress. Change is on a spectrum. Change is not a light switch getting flipped on or off. So just sit with this. I think I'm going to leave it at that today. I have some other notes that I've thought about sharing, but I think I'm going to save it for a separate episode. I want this to be really short and to the point so that you can take action on this. How can you think about using your future self to make more intentional, thoughtful choices around food so that you are not reacting, you are responding with awareness, with attention, with presence? That is behavior change. This is what behavior change is all about. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for listening. Thank you guys for being here. As always, if you're listening to this first episode, 5th episode, if you've listened to all 145, amazing. Thank you. You're a super fan and I love you. I appreciate it all. And if you're able to share this episode, if it resonated with you, or the podcast, The Diet Diaries, with a friend or someone you think would benefit from it, I'm incredibly grateful. Your word of mouth, references and referrals are everything to me, more than you know. So thank you. And as always, I will be back next week.